Mishnah Ches. We're moving on now to Tefillin, as the Mishnah calls it, Tefillah, Tefillin Shel Yad, Tefillin Shel Rosh. Each one's called a Tefillah. Says the Mishnah, Arba'a Kelim. Now we're all used to Tefillin. We think Tefillin is one object. It's in fact, it's like a glove. It's a piece of leather, and you have four separate, we're talking about the Tefillin Shel Rosh, four separate compartments. True, they're all mechuba, they all become one, but it's like a keli made of four compartments, four separate compartments. Each one has the ability to be its own kli. This is very important when we deal with the Mishnah, in contrast to the Mishnah we did 2 Mishnahs ago with a bed, where even in its broken state, it can only be one kli or not a kli at all. Here it's four separate kelim, and we're dealing with a case where the tefillin becomes tomei mace. In other words, it was an oil mace. The tefillin is now an av hatuma. So what in fact we've got in, although the tefillin is one object of an av hatuma, it's in fact four separate kelim, klei oil, attached, all an av hatuma. Got the picture? Let's move on. To make it easier, we're going to give these batim, which the Mishnah calls ketzitzas, numbers. We've got original Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, and we're going to have new Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled. So first thing you do is, says the Mishnah, Hitir ketzitza harishona v'tikno. You remove Beis Aleph. And tikno means you attach a new Beis Aleph. So we've got a new Beis Aleph attached to an old Beis, Gimel and Daled. Tamei Tomei Mace, of course, the new Beis Aleph is attached to the old Beis, Gimel, Daled. They are original Av Hatumas, therefore the new one is Mechubar and just adopts the identity of Beis, Gimel, Daled. V'chein Shniya v'chein Shlishis. You then remove, even if you remove Beis, even if you remove Gimel, you replace Aleph, Beis and Gimel, it doesn't matter because the original Daled is still there. And therefore when you're Mechaber, Aleph, Beis and Gimel to Daled, because Daled is the original Keli, which is an Av Hatuma, Aleph, Beis and Gimel, therefore adopt the identity of Daled and it all becomes an Av Hatuma. So far so good. Then we move on with the story. Hitis Horavius. You then remove Beis Daled and change it. At that moment, you got rid of all the old batim. Everything is new. Therefore, the original Keli, which was an Av Hatuma, now disappears, says the Mishnah, Tohiro mitami mace. Because the Aleph, Beis, Gimel were only an Av Hatuma because they were mechuba to Daled, which was itself an Av Hatuma. Soon as you remove Daled, you're left with new Aleph, new Beis, new Gimel, new Daled. Now they were never an Av Hatuma, and they are not now mechuba to an Av Hatuma. But when we attached Aleph, new Beis, and new Gimel to old Daled, they also were touching old Daled. Therefore, at that point, they also became a Rishon L'Tumah on their own account because they touched Daled. Yeah, later on, when they became actually Mechuba to Daled, they adopted the identity of Daled. But even before they adopted the identity of Daled, they actually touched Daled, and therefore they became a Rishon L'Tumah in their own right. So when you now get rid of Daled and put a new Daled, the old Aleph, Beis, Gimel are a Rishon L'Tumah from their original touching of Daled, and therefore the new Daled is now mechuba to the new Aleph, Beis, Gimel, and therefore the whole set Avon Tmei Maga Tmei Mace means they all now are Rishon L'Tumah. They've all touched an Av Hatuma of Mace. They're all an Av Hatuma. So we've got a new Aleph, new Beis, new Gimel, new Daled, all being a Rishon L'Tumah. And then we start again. Chazal Rishona v'Tira v'Tikna. You then replace Aleph again. So now you've got Aleph number 3. Of course, Aleph number 3 is touching Beis and Gimel, and therefore Aleph number 3 becomes a Rishon like they are. Tmei B'Maga. New Aleph number 3 becomes a Rishon with the others. V'chein Shneil. When you change Beis number 2 to Beis number 3, because Beis number 3 is touching Gimel, the old, not the very old Gimel, Gimel number 2, so it's a bit confusing, it is therefore touching a Rishon Tumah, and therefore they will adopt and become a Rishon Tumah with the Gimel. But the moment you take away Gimel, Hitis Ashlishis, right? Now, as soon as you remove the second Gimel, second batch of Gimel, all you've got left is the possible Chibur to the Dalad. But that Dalad was never a Rishon Tumah in its own right. That Dalad was only a Rishon Tumah because it was attached to Aleph and Beis Gimel, which were a Rishon Tumah themselves. And therefore, at that moment, Tahira, everything is Tar. Shorvius B'maga, because that Dalad only became Tomei, a Rishon Tumah, because it was touching the original Aleph, well, the second lot of Aleph Beis Gimel. Vein Maga is a Maga and a Tumas Meis. Once you're Rishon, you then can't go to a Sheni, and therefore the whole tefillin is Tar. That's a bit complicated, so maybe you listen to it again.